My name is Kathy Zeidenstein. I'm here with Tony Leung. He's an architect in the Optim development organization, which used to be known as Data Studio. His responsibility is mainly for integrating some of the products together. So I wanted to talk to him a little bit about this new product we just announced called Optim Query Tuner, which was designed specifically for developers to help get them, going on, query tuning and doing that during the development process. And it does some things like query formatting, and it has like advice, query advice. And one of the things you've been doing, I guess, is working on integrating that with Optim Development Studio, which is the new name for Data Studio Developer. So tell us a little bit about that. I mean, why is it important to integrate those two products together?
Sure, thank you, Kathy. One of the problems that we have as a developer is that we are, Java experts. We don't know about Java logic. We know a lot about application logic. We're under pressure to deliver our products.
Right.
So one of the things that we are not very good at is to figure out, spend enough time to tune the SQL that we write. Especially since we're not really, experts in query tuning. A lot of times you just slap together SQL and say, this is good enough for my application. We send the application off to production, and then problems happen during production because the SQLs may not be well tuned. There might be problems with no indexes being created. Maybe there's some prep work that we need to do. So DBAs and developers are always at odds as to where the problems are, how to deal with these problems. So one of the things that we're excited about Query Tuner is that this gives developers a chance to look at their query and the impact on the database before that application is ever actually sent into production. So one thing that we're really looking at is, say, as developers, can we actually, at the time that we write the SQL, be able to actually look at the SQL itself and figure it out, is it expensive to run this SQL? Are there better ways of writing this SQL? And that's really what Query Tuner is good for. I'm going to show you actually 3 examples of a Java program. One of them is just plain JDBC as a JDBC developer. That's what you'll be used to. The other 2 are really more focused on the pure query style of programming. So I actually want you 3 ways of showing the how we can actually integrate Query Tuner into the Optim Developer Studio. So Kathy, let me show you how we integrate the Query Tuner into Optim Development Studio. Here it is. Here's a JDBC applications that I have prepared. What it does is really passing a set of SQL into JDBC calls. As you can see in Optim Developer Studio, we already highlighted all the SQL in your JDBC application for you. So in order to tune a SQL that you just entered into the Java editor, you just get a mouse click on the highlighted area, go to Pure Query, and say Tune SQL. And what it does is it passes the SQL that we have selected for you into the Query Tuner. And once Query Tuner sees that SQL, you could just go ahead and hit the Tune Query button. And what it does is it takes that query, it runs it through a set of advisors who looks at the query from different perspectives, such as the access plan, the cost, and what kind of predicates you have specified in your query. And it'll give you some advice as to how to make it better. For this particular query, what you can see is that the only advice the advisor can give you is that make sure that you do a run stat on the database before you run these queries, because that would actually make the optimizer be aware of all the data that you have in the table. If you look at the access plan graph, what you can see is a set of operations that the database will do in order to perform the query. So you can actually see things like joins, index scans, and that gives you some idea of what's going on when the database has to run your query. So this is really what all you have to do for running JDBC applications.
That looks really great, Tony, but what if I already have an application sort of developed and I have some time to tune it, do a little work on it before I send it over to QA? I mean, how do I know, what to focus on, what my hotspots are?
Right, that's a very good question. That's the first question that we ask ourselves when we first integrate to Query Tuner. Is it, as an application, existing application might have hundreds to thousands of SQLs. Which one do you tune first? So we integrated 2 more features into our Optim Developer Studio. One of them is to look at explain cost. So if you have access to a test system that has relatively good statistics that reflects what the production system looks like, what you can do is with ODS, you could actually ask us to retrieve this explain estimate cost to you into ODS. You can then sort all your SQLs by their estimated cost. Then you can actually find one of the costed statements to tune first. So give the top 10, top 20, if you will, so you can actually tune those SQLs first. So that's with estimated cost. The other way to look at it is we have a way to capture performance data. So you can actually look at running an application, capturing all the SQL, and how long each SQL has taken, how many times the SQL is run. So then looking at those, you can say maybe I want to tune the SQL that I run the most frequently, or you may want to tune the ones that you actually has the the longest elapsed time, because those will be cause the SQLs to run. To answer Kathy's question on what happens when you have an existing application that a developer will be maintaining, in the SQL outline view, we have gathered all the SQLs that you have issued from the JDBC application if you have turned on capture. So once the application SQLs are captured, they get shown in the SQL outline view organized by schemas and tables, or my favorite view, organize them by projects. So looking at these projects, you can see all the SQLs that are being executed by your application. You can see that we explain data, and when you look at a SQL that are actually costing quite a bit, you can then get the pop-up menu and say tune SQL, and it will launch you right into the query tuner with the SQL that you want to tune. So follow the same procedures that we did before by hitting the Tune Query button in order to actually get the advice from the advisors. Another way of looking at SQL is by the execution view. So what it does is it gives you a sense of when you run the application, how many times the SQL has been run and the time that is taken for that SQL to run. So if you look at this particular SQL, the select was actually run once, but then the total time taken was actually quite a bit, compared to this particular SQL, which was run 100 times, but then the total time taken was actually relatively small. So based on this, you might want to tune a SQL that will actually run frequently, or a SQL that was actually run only once but have taken like an inordinate amount of time. Those might be candidates for you to tune. So again, go in here and say tune SQL to pass the SQL into the query tuner.
Thanks a lot, Tony, for your time. And if anybody wants to know anything more about Optim Development Studio and Query Tuner, make sure you come to the Optim community space. We have a lot of great stuff out there for you to see.
Yeah, let us know any feedback you have is how we can actually make this better.